Hey everybody, welcome to the Choten Show, where we talk about the founders, operators, and innovators shaping the future of online businesses, specifically in the high-ticket coaching spaces, the B2B SaaS spaces, and sharing the best practices on how we can use AI to sell and scale. Today's guest is a really special guest for me. He's a good friend of mine, Garrett Campbell. Garrett used to be a high-ticket closer himself. From there, he decided to open up his own training business where he built it up to 7 figures. Not only did he build up his coaching business to 7 figures, he was able to sell it and has started his own AI called Objectionly. In 3 months with Objectionly, Garrett has been able to go from a $0 valuation to a $10 million valuation in just 3 months. He's only like 26 years old. So, Garrett, thank you for joining. Welcome to the show.
Dude, yeah, thanks for having me on. It's really cool to be here, especially given that, we met as you kind of stepped into the high ticket sales space. So dude, yeah, happy to be here. Happy to nerd out about AI and sales.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So you've done a lot of things in a very short amount of time. You're still really young, all the way from closing yourself to coaching, closing, and then shifting over to a brand new business model where you're hoping to be the next $1 billion business. So walk us through that journey a little bit. How'd you get started?
Yeah, it was wild. It's kind of funny. Like, I don't think any kid ever, grows up wanting to get into sales. You kind of just back up your car one day and you bump into something and then you get out of your car and you look and it's a sales shop.
No, that's what happened with me.
That's kind of how it happened to me. As I was actually going to college for chiropractic and I was trying to pave my way through there, paying for college myself. I didn't exactly grow up with a silver spoon, so I had to do anything I could to pay for college, and ended up basically just getting scrappy and selling shoes out of the back of my car to make money, like Yeezys and Jordans and these kind of designer expensive shoes that I'd flip and stuff. And I just realized that that's not the best thing to do. So it kind of pivoted into getting into sales. Long story short, we'll maybe dive into this, maybe we won't, but I did $8 million in sales with 50-60% close rates, selling in the high ticket space, selling a lot in the world of finance, and then realized the impact that I made on a couple different sales teams that I was just doing kind of out of the kindness of my heart and not really getting any rev share or any compensation for outside of my sales commissions. So it kind of evolved into freelancing and helping sales teams with placing a sales rep or reviewing their sales process or looking at their sales and marketing processes or training a sales rep one-off. And then it kind of evolved into 2 different businesses, which are Closing Bible, where we train and place sales reps from other industries and bring them into the world of remote closing. And then we had Hire Startups.io, where we were staffing sales reps into 7-8 figure businesses kind of in the online world, like big personal brands, stuff like that. And then, ran that for about 4 years or so. And then I sold Hire Startups.io a couple months ago and now run the software company that I run today.
Awesome, man. Awesome. You mentioned you had been helping businesses place sales rep. You placed over 300 or over 500 sales reps in over 350 plus businesses, right? So tell me, what was the reason for stopping that? It seems like such a great business model.
Yeah, it was a great business, but if we just put on a business owner hat here, unfortunately, the most unpredictable part of any business ever are humans, right? It isn't something that you can automate. It is something to where emotions or things that happen in personal life or whatever can inevitably affect, the result and the outcome. And, when you're doing sales recruiting, you are literally kind of selling humans, right? You're selling people to fill roles. And it is the most variable part of the business, and people was the entire business of what I was running. So, although we scaled it to a pretty good size and did a high volume of placements, a good amount of revenue, cross 7-figure market, and annual revenue, I just saw that there's a lot of operational complexity in running a staffing business, and there is just the big question mark of human kind of unreliability that was extremely frustrating. I have a lot of friends that run, billion-dollar software companies, pretty massive software companies. And I just realized that if I want to grow a billion-dollar company, it's possible to do in recruiting, without a doubt. There's big companies like, Fiverr and Upwork and Indeed and fucking LinkedIn that exist, right? So it's possible. But you'll notice I just listed 4 different software companies. Right. So it just felt inevitable that in order to build what I wanted to build at the size that I wanted to build it to, software and AI was going to be the route that I would have to do it in.
Awesome, man. So, that actually leads me into my next question then. So Tell us a little bit about Objectionly and what do you guys actually do?
So I think at its core, like the reason we even came up with the idea was we would, when I was running my sales recruiting business, we were placing the exact same salesperson into a company that had not the strongest sales management or onboarding processes. And that sales rep would be lucky to generate $50,000 a month in volume. And then we'd place that exact same salesperson into a company who would listen to their sales calls frequently, that had good sales managers in place, that had good onboarding in place. And that exact same salesperson would crank out 250 grand a month in volume every single month for this business. And it's like, as I interviewed the founders and sales managers kind of on both ends of the equation, the independent variable was inevitably just that they listened to their sales calls and then they gave them feedback based on what's happening in those sales calls. But unfortunately, sales call review is impactful, but it's also one of the most time-consuming, boring, fucking repetitive things to do on the planet, and everyone hates doing it.
Absolutely.
So,
it takes forever as well.
Of course. So I'm like, what if I basically built a software that could read all of your sales calls and watch all of your sales calls using AI, and then just deliver the insights and results and output that you would get if you sat down and listened to it. Because only 80% of sales calls never even get reviewed in general, and in most companies it's closer to 99%. So I'm like, if we had AI watching 100% of sales calls, what level of impact would that create for businesses? So in the most simplest form ever, Objectionly integrates with any call recording software that you actively use and watches all of your sales calls to cut call review time by 80% for sales managers, and then just help you optimize your sales and marketing process.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, I mean, just in my time as a salesperson, I can tell you that's a big, big bonus. If every one of my phone calls was ever recorded, I got training off of every single one, was able to see the exact missteps that I've done, then my close rate would have skyrocketed, right? And I think that's one thing that Objectionly has really been able to do well. Now, there's also a marketing side to Objectionly. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think marketing at its core level, I've spent about $1 million on meta ads, and I basically ran the entire marketing department of my previous business. Marketing is very simple. You're just sending the correct message to the correct person. And that at its core is fundamentally all marketing is. So there's really only two ways where it could go wrong. Is it's either the wrong person or it's the wrong message to that person. So the problem is marketers never actually listen to any sales calls. They essentially see metrics in a dashboard and they see numbers, right? So that's quantitative data, it's numbers. Qualitative data is everything that isn't numbers, right? And qualitative data is essentially what sits inside of your Fathom, your Fireflies, your Zoom recordings, all of this stuff. And marketers never actually listen to any of these sales calls. You'll see that a cost per acquisition is high, a cost per lead is high, a cost per book call is high, but they don't know why it's high. They don't know why deals aren't closing because they're not the salesperson. And that's why sales and marketing always butts heads, right? So we're essentially kind of the source of truth in the middle between sales and marketing. But direct answer is we take the prospect's words, their pain points, their objections, their buying reasons, their aspirations. We pull all of that language into our models to basically generate emails for your email list, cold emails, LinkedIn outbound messages, and video meta ads. So where we see our users using it the most is for video meta ads and for emails to their email list. Because you could say the right message if you're literally using their words, right? Like if you are speaking to a tech sales rep, you're not going to say closer, you're going to say AE. Right? Like the language is slightly different, but if you say closer, you're going to bring a totally different market than if you say AE. So by just making these minor tweaks in the words that you actually use, you naturally not only say the right message, but you attract the right person because you're speaking their language.
Absolutely. So bringing that mixture between the sales, the marketing, and combining the two, really improving that top of funnel acquisition style, and then also improving the bottom of the funnel with the actual sales call. That's really the key here with Objectionly.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what kind of differentiates you from any other software? Or is there another software that does anything similar?
No, there 100% is. Gong is definitely a competitor of ours, but not in the way that you'd think. Gong's been around for 12 years. They're a $7.5 billion company. They've raised nearly $500 million from investors. They do like $350 million a year in revenue, but they've been the industry leader because they've been the only option. So when a company is like, hey, we can't keep up with call review, we want a solution. You're going to go to Gong, and then depending upon how many sales reps you have on your team, you're going to get quoted anywhere from $150,000 all the way up to $2 million. Like their highest contract is about $10 million a year for, given this is the Googles, the Amazons,
Yeah.
of the world. Like they go after enterprise. When you think of the law firm that does $5 million a year, the CPA firm that does, a couple $1,000,000 a year, they can't stomach a $20,000 a month software bill. It's just like, it doesn't make sense for their business size. So there's no solutions on the market similar to Gong that can actually support like the 1.1 million businesses that speak English and have sales teams. Gong is without a doubt a competitor, but they go after kind of the top 1% of businesses, and we more so see how can we create something for a couple $100 a month that can be better than Gong, and then serve it to the masses of businesses that need us.
Absolutely, man. That makes a lot of sense. Gong, I've used Gong before. It's a great software, but
great software. Yeah.
But you're right. It's expensive as hell, and I've only worked with it when being at pretty large companies. So sounds like a great option for those smaller brands. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit to high ticket sales and then the sales process in general, your time in the high ticket sales industry. You've really seen this industry from the beginning. So what have you kind of seen change throughout when you started? What's kind of evolved from then to now? Yeah,
I would say COVID was the bull rush of the high ticket sales space, without a doubt, a bull run. It was wild. Like companies could literally slap a Facebook ad up, send it to a page with a video, a VSL, throw down a book a call, and people just, without any level of skepticism or more research, would just send 5 to 10 grand, one call closed, no issue. It was a wild time to be alive. It's why, granted, we had great marketing, and obviously I was great at sales, but like I was holding 65% close rates for the last offer that I sold for, which is bananas. I think as time went on, and granted, I think because of the timing of COVID, a lot of people were looking for alternative ways to make a side income, make different money. I just had all the free time to where they couldn't do things like prioritize their health and fitness. Now they could, right? Whether it was a make money thing or it wasn't. So I think that created an insane amount of buyers. And then I think as time went on, as people bought more products, some people had great experiences with those products and some people didn't. And more businesses and more coaching programs essentially emerged. So it created a higher supply, and I wouldn't say a decreasing demand, but I would say a more educated market who's bought this a thing or two, who's hit a website that looks like the other websites. And I think that just helped or gave buyers the understanding that there are multiple options out there. So what happened as time went on and the market essentially evolved and matured is the need for brand grew rapidly to where now you can't just be a stranger who runs a Facebook ad. You have to have content. You have to have people that know you exist who can digest 3, 4, 5, 10 hours of your content to have a deep understanding of who you are. And they more so want to make the purchasing decision mentally prior to hopping on a sales call. And the sales call is almost just confirmation that what they thought in their head was accurate, and then get the price and pay. So I think where things were maybe 50-50 marketing and sales, they came almost like 75% marketing, 25% sales. So I'd say that's kind of how the market evolved over the 5 years that I was, in the space from kind of day one to today.
Yeah. I mean, you brought up a really good point about building that brand. The biggest gurus in the world all talk about the same thing. The Alex Hormozis, the Ravi Avubalas, the Jeremy Miners, all of them talk about building this brand. And you've actually done a pretty good job building your brand to, grow Closing Bible and hire salesreps.io. So, for you, what does that mean now with Objectionly?
Yeah, so brand is definitely vital to what it is that we do, but in a tad of a different light than the high ticket space, right? Like it's interesting because I bootstrapped my last business, right? Like that was just throw 10 grand in a business bank account and go make money and go be scrappy.
Yep.
With this business, we took an alternative route. Like we bootstrapped, we started developing the software in April. We went live with our first beta customer in June. It was pretty crazy stories. They were stuck between 1 to 1.4 million cash collected every month for 6 months. Then they started using Objectionly and crossed 2.9 million cash collected in July.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this works. And keep in mind, this was an MVP. This was like, I was like, hey, dude, I'm going to give you like a 75% discount on what you guys should be paying for this because they're booking like 2,000 sales calls a month. I'm like, I'll give you guys this for $300 a month. It's like our lowest tier plan even still today. Just like try this out. Let me know your thoughts. And it works, right? So As we got customers, we scaled to 80,000 in ARR. I'm like, okay, if we're gonna like really build a big brand and really grow this thing to be like a $1 billion behemoth that has 20,000, 50,000 businesses using this, like we need to build a real proper brand and have the capital to really grow this thing to be massive. So that's why we're actually raising a $1 million seed round. So we have a good portion of that already raised, and we're looking to finish the rest of that raise, but a good 20% of that capital is being allocated towards building brand. So I think what that looks like is, how do we have premium branding, almost like, an Instantly or like a Loom or a Zapier, to where it's not, I think a lot of the high ticket sales branding has an element of kind of lifestyle marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there's definitely a time and a place for that. And I think kind of we have basically a pillar of kind of like building in public content that I think really just shows kind of the behind the scenes of what it's like to be a founder, that I think is appealing to other business owners, which is cool. But yeah, like it's speaking on stages, it's being kind of across all platforms. It's definitely prioritizing LinkedIn. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's a long-winded answer of how we brand.
I mean, that's great. That's great, man. The building in public portion of that's amazing, especially since a lot of your target market is going to be those smaller businesses. You're not really looking for the CEOs of Microsoft.
Right.
So I mean, that's a great thing. You did mention something that seemed really interesting to me. So you mentioned how with the high ticket sales space, it's all about lifestyle. It's all about the glitz and glamour of making a lot of money as a salesperson, working from anywhere in the world. That's what everyone's sold. You get warm leads on your calendar. You sell anywhere in the world, right? And obviously, you get into it. It's not as glitzy and glamorous as people make it out to be. But what would you kind of give? What sort of advice would you give to somebody who's looking to get into closing, who eventually wants to walk down that same path as you, from closer to founder?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I would prioritize being at the biggest and best well-ran company over the title of closer. And I think one thing I heavily regret is not working for a more established company as a closer, and not spending more time with that founder. Because like, if you work for a company doing $1 million a month, a couple million a month, $30 million a year, the amount, that is like a fucking Harvard MBA of how to run a business. Because with these types of businesses, the proximity that you have to the founder is insane. These aren't 300 person, 500 person companies. These are like 20 to 30 person companies. So the proximity that you have to the founder is fucking insane. You can understand from the inside out, like if you kind of view this as like a car engine, right? Like you as the closer or as the setter, you're like it's a shitty example. I don't know nothing about cars. This is like you're like one of the gears inside of the engine, right? You're one of the pistons. And you're like this one function of this very ginormous engine. And I think your ability to close and make as much money as physically possible, to put 100 grand in the bank account in 12 months, which is very possible if you live frugal and are dedicated to your craft, you can actually zoom out and see how the whole engine works and be curious and be like, okay, how does the marketing work? How much do we spend on ads? Why do we say that ad specifically? Why does this ad do better and bring in the right people? And why does this ad not? Why do we say this on our website? So that, that's the marketing side. From a finance perspective, it's like, okay, how many employees do we have? How much do we pay each person? Like, why are they compensated that way? On the fulfillment side, it's like, what systems do we build? Like, why do we do things the way that we do them? And I think that basically allows you to learn every function of the business. So when it comes time to actually start your own business, you now have a strong understanding of every department of the business, because obviously you're going to know sales like the back of your hand if you do it long enough. But you can understand all the other functions and have the capital and connections to be able to actually crush it once you do decide to go be a founder.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Now, I mean, great stuff. Seriously, I didn't even think about it like that. Working with those big companies, those established companies, it's a great way for someone to learn from the inside out. So you make a really good point.
Not to speak over you, but like, because I didn't do that, I had to basically buy more courses and coaching and masterminds or whatever to compensate for that. So I had a curious mindset, but the last business I sold for didn't have a CRM. We were living out of a Google Sheet doing 800 grand a month. It was insanity. It was pure insanity. I don't even know. I'd never had a sales call get reviewed. My sales manager was literally no-showing us in sales team meetings. It was a messy operation that got great client results. We did great numbers, but maybe not something that you should idolize as how you want to run your business. So
Right.
I had to spend a lot of money to learn how other departments should function because of the deficits of the company that I was at. So
That makes sense, man.
yeah.
Awesome. Really great points there. So now that you're running Objectionly, and it truly does feel like the future of sales trainings, I would love to see how, just off topic a little bit, but I really love to see how a lot of these sales trainers, these sales gurus like Jeremy Miner and Cole Gordon, how they could use a software like yours. But that's neither here nor there. I want to ask you how you've kind of seen firsthand how AI plugs into the sales process outside of just Objectionly.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to the sales department, what's pretty crazy is across all companies, when it comes to how companies spend money on AI, they spend the most amount of money in the sales department, which is very interesting. So there's essentially two routes that you can take when it comes to spending money or solving problems with AI in the sales department. There's the admin route, and then there's like what moves revenue route. And they're two very different routes that you could take, and there's different solutions for kind of both parties. The admin side is very interesting, right? Like there's a crazy stat that sales reps only actually spend 30% of their time selling. They spend 70% of their time doing all the other bullshit that every sales rep hates doing with a passion, which is updating the CRM, changing pipeline stages, the notes, follow-up emails, being in sales team meetings, filling out end-of-day reports, filling out data dashboards, filling out data trackers, KPI dashboards.
And
It's
with
a
the
lot.
number of ADHD salespeople there are, oh my God.
It is 100% of sales reps have ADHD. I have ADHD, right? So I think automating all that admin with AI can take your sales reps from spending 30% of their time selling to like 80% of their time selling. And you can literally get 2 to 3x more output per sales rep just by automating a lot of their admin and having them spend more time selling. The other route is where Objectionly sits, which is the moving revenue side. And we will tackle admin as we continue to develop our product and finish our technical roadmap and all that stuff. But it's the revenue side of the equation, which is, in order to move revenue from a sales management perspective, it's how can your sales manager get maximum output from how well sales calls are actually conducted. So being able to use AI to watch sales calls, to understand why people are buying, why people aren't buying, to be able to make sure that your sales team meetings are actually moving the needle. Like, dude, you've been a sales rep. How many pointless sales team meetings have you been in?
So many. So many.
Yeah. Yeah.
Start tuning them out sometimes. You start just fidgeting
Yeah,
on your computer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. And it's because a lot of times, like as someone who's managed sales teams, I'll say this with a level of transparency. Sometimes you show up, it's 9 a.m. and you're like, fuck, we have a sales team meeting in an hour. I don't even know what we're going to cover. So the sales reps know it's bullshit because you're unprepared, and you're unprepared because you don't have enough time to do call review to be educated enough to know what the biggest problem is. So making sales team meetings more impactful to be able to identify what is the biggest bottleneck right now for why we're not closing more deals, and how can we aggressively tackle that bottleneck by coaching the reps on what to be doing differently. I think those are kind of the two routes for AI in the sales department.
Now, one of the biggest sort of red flags or places of fear that people have with AI is that it will eventually replace humans, and maybe we see that in some of the more manual jobs. But as far as sales goes, what would you say to those people that think that AI might replace salespeople?
I think sales will be the last thing that gets replaced, at least when we're talking about humans, right? I think operations, we're seeing crazy stuff with software development. I think these, like marketing, we're seeing it a lot in. I think salespeople will be the last man standing when it comes to being automated and their jobs being taken by AI, which is great for salespeople because as AI takes over more and more and more of companies and how we interact, the human experience is something that cannot be replicated by AI. It's going to have to be damn good to get there. I think if you are an SDR sending cold emails or LinkedIn outbounds, you should be a little worried. Like, for sure. I think if you're selling very inexpensive products like insurance, if you're selling just something that's like sub $1,000, these are things that do not require a sales call. And oftentimes, people don't want to talk to a human. So they may literally prefer to speak to an AI, depending upon probably how old the people are. I think if, as the boomers die, I think the generation, love my boomers, don't want them to die, but there will be a point where they die.
Let's say they retire. Once they retire.
retire. Retire is a less morbid word. We could probably lean into that. They're going to be the least receptive to AI. And I think as generations, like, I don't even know what my younger brothers in high school, what, Gen X? I don't know. Gen Alpha? Gen Alpha, maybe? Yeah. These people, they've had AI in their hands in high school. They're doing their homework with AI. We are very receptive to AI as a generation. We're basically, the same age. I'm 25. We are very receptive to AI. So I think people of our age and the coming generations are going to be used to having AI in their hand, and they're going to be more comfortable talking to AI. But I think the people selling very expensive things, I'm not wiring $1 million to anybody without speaking to a human and knowing who is the human behind this, right? So I would say most salespeople are safe. They're going to be the last people to be touched. But SDR work that isn't on sales calls and low priced product sales will probably be automated by AI first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What sort of AI tools, obviously you run your own AI software, what sort of AI tools are you using within your own business that have helped you out a lot?
Yeah. My CTO can answer this way better than me. He's a beast when it comes to AI. It's really cool to see kind of how he does his workflow. I mean, we definitely use Cursor and different stuff like that. Not really for our actual code base. Like sometimes we see that to be beneficial, but it oftentimes creates more problems than what's called technical debt. Which is basically you code something really fast with Cursor, and then as you scale and more people use your product, it literally breaks.
You kind of have to keep fixing it.
We use it more for like a basic landing page, a website, throwing something up, and with a small portion of our code. So we definitely use Cursor. We use Objectionly for sure.
Of course.
But apart from that, I mean, like ChatGPT is pretty damn effective. Clay is a pretty cool tool that uses AI. When it comes to doing outbound, that's pretty effective. I would say stuff like that. What's interesting is like a lot of the native tools that native softwares that people have used have all started incorporating AI. So it's not even really that we use custom like AI only new softwares, but it's that Monday.com, has some AI features. It's that Zapier, you can literally send a voice message to Zapier and it'll build out a Zap for you. So we're using more kind of legacy softwares that every other business has used, but incorporating their AI features have been pretty beneficial.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So I really enjoyed the conversation about AI so far, but now I kind of want to just ask you a little bit about you and your personal philosophies and your wisdom that you can share with masses. So, you've mentored hundreds of closers, you've managed teams, you've coached founders, you've done it all. So what's the one core belief that you have about sales, business, anything that you wish more people understood?
I think it's flipping the dynamic. I think when this is very simple, but I think when you are the one selling your product to your prospect, it is always going to be an uphill battle because it's you reaching and then pulling back. But if you can really flip the dynamic really flip the status to where they're more so selling you and why they qualify and why they deserve to be one of your customers, it becomes extremely easy to sell. So being able to really hold frame and hold status and frame your service and whatever it is that you're selling is more so a premium service to where there's some level of a selection process to even decide if you're allowed to bring them on as a customer, really makes them start selling themselves and why they're allowed to buy. And it creates an easier sales dynamic to sell, to where you can have really high close rates. And also, I think beyond that, maybe this is just for me growing up in a very small town Illinois with 5,000 people where we had bring your tractor to school day, is that going deep and genuine care for the person in front of you and spending the time to understand the human being that you're speaking to beyond just this is my 4th sales call today and I have one right after this, so let's see if I can get a credit card in 45 minutes, is genuinely understanding the person in front of you and what actually motivates them and what their core beliefs are, because you can identify what beliefs that they have internally that you can bend and adapt that are not in your favor for making a purchasing decision. And if you know them at a core enough level, you can see what beliefs are in the way of the sale, and then you can work to bend those once you have their trust.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And you mentioned something that's really important, and I think almost every sales trainer has probably brought up at some point, is just having that frame and being able to get the salesperson to sell themselves, get the prospect to sell themselves essentially. And to me, the ability to do that comes with a lot of conviction and confidence within yourself and your product. So tell me how you sort of keep that mindset, that conviction in yourself to keep going and really have that confidence to hold that frame?
Yeah, well, I think it's not enough salespeople or just people selling anything in general, whether the founder or, they have a big sales team and sales managers and stuff, is that you can't work with everyone. And I think when you just look at every person on your calendar as a potential sale,
that's a great point.
And that's like, you literally can't. Like if you, regardless of whatever it is, even with Objectionly, right? I'll just keep it on there because it's something that obviously I sell a lot. Is we can't work with everyone. If they're a founder taking their own sales calls, it can be beneficial, but like really, it's not the most beneficial unless they have sales reps, right? If they don't have a decent volume of sales calls, if they're taking 2 calls a week, it doesn't make sense for them, right? So there's essentially these qualifications and this criteria to make sure that they're actually able to get the end result based on who they are as a person and as a business. So if you have all those criteria laid out, letting them know up front in the beginning of the sales call that I just need to dissect your sales team and your company to decipher if this even makes sense for you, because we don't necessarily work for everyone and everyone shouldn't use our products. It becomes like no, I came here because I wanted this, and now he's saying I can't get it. And it's natural human nature to want things that you can't have. That's why fraternities and sororities exist. That's why social clubs that have membership fees exist. That's why country clubs exist. It's this kind of status game that you play, and to take away something that people want, it makes them want it more. So just communicating that you can't work with everyone and that there is criteria to actually meet makes them sell you on why they actually meet all of your boxes and check all of your boxes, and are basically begging you and drooling out of the mouth to make sure that they're allowed to buy your product by the end of the call. It makes it a tremendously easy sell.
That's some good sauce, man. That's some good sauce. All right, man. So I'm gonna just hit you with some rapid fire questions. I want you to just first, right off the bat, keep it short, concise. Let's go, all right? So what's the most overrated sales advice you've ever heard?
I would say that product knowledge is more important than knowing the avatar. I think that's very backwards. I think that if you know the avatar and you know all of their problems, it's gonna be way easier to sell them whatever product that you have, because you know their products, you know their problems that your product solves, more than knowing the intricacies of the product but not understanding who you're talking to.
If you know the prospect, it doesn't matter what you're selling. You'll be able to sell it.
100%.
Who's your favorite business guru, closer guy of all time, or girl?
I gotta say Hermosi, but maybe someone who isn't in the business world that I really respect is Chris Voss. He wrote Never Split the Difference. It's my favorite sales book. He's like a CIA negotiator, but he's a wizard. I love his stuff.
What's the hardest objection you've ever had to overcome?
It's probably just a lot of, this isn't really anything too groundbreaking, but it's just selling B2C to people that are 30 to 50 years old that are married, and getting the wife's approval. Like just having to basically make sure that we're not trying to wedge a gap between their partners and wanting to cause conflict for them. And then having a extremely educated party who really wants to do something, and then having an uneducated partner who doesn't know anything about what's going on, who just sees
the price tag.
Hey, you want to spend 10 grand on this crazy thing? What are you talking about? No, we have these bills and we have these things. Like, what are we doing? Right? So not creating a wedge between the two partners and knowing that you want them to be on the same page while simultaneously keeping that other person educated can be challenging.
Yeah. You're selling 2 people at that point. You're having to do twice the work, right?
Yep.
What's one thing that you wish new closers should stop doing immediately?
I would say over-obsessing about the amount of money that you make in the first 6 months of being in your sales career, when you're talking about new closers, right? Because the skills will compound faster than the money does. And it's oftentimes when we talk about like hockey stick growth in your sales career, at first, this looks like no progress. But what's actually happening is skills are going like this, and then eventually the money follows, and they hit this crossroads. And it's crazy. There's crazy statistics about the first 6 months of your sales career and the amount of people that leave sales within 6 months and never do it again. And it's because their skills are compounding, but they don't see the money. And they have this mental timeline of, if I don't make this much money by this time frame within a month, I'm out. And it's like, if they just gave themselves a little bit more time, they could make more money than they could ever fathom or ever even know what to do with.
Yep.
But they just don't stick to it long enough.
Yeah. When I first started sales, I quit. It was 10 years ago. I told myself I never want to be in sales again. I never want to do it. People who want to be in sales are crazy. And I always thought, oh, you can talk to people, you're going to be good at sales. That is furthest thing from the truth. If I had to tell any new closers, that would be my advice, is that just being able to talk to people doesn't mean shit in sales.
Yeah. often the slightly introverted person will do better than the extrovert.
I agree, because they're actually listening, right? They're actually listening
Yep.
to what the prospect is telling them. With me, I'm a very extroverted person. All I want to do is explain. Jeremy Miner actually talks about this a lot. Everyone sounds the same. Everyone says their product is the best. It's the ones who listen the most that really get the sales. Really cool stuff, man. Garrett, this was awesome. I really appreciate this. You've lived every stage of the sales world, and now you're really building the tools that I believe are going to be the next big thing in the sales world. So really appreciate that. For anyone listening, where can people learn more about Objectionly and just connect with you?
100%. Yeah. For anyone running a company that books sales calls, you can literally go to Objectionly right now, objectionly.com, and for free, you can just put some sales calls into the platform and see what it says about your business and see why more people aren't buying and what you could change and what you could do to improve without giving us a penny. So just go there and throw some calls on the platform and see what it says about your business. As far as connecting with me, Garrett Campbell. My name's Garrett Campbell. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. Those are probably the two platforms that I'm the most active on. I have a YouTube if you want some, sales training videos and business videos and stuff like that. So really any platform with Garrett Campbell, I'm there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening to the Choten podcast. If this episode gave you any sort of insights, any sort of things that you didn't know before about the future of sales, please share it far and wide. We'd love to hear back from you. And please give me any feedback. Garrett, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day, man.
You're the man. Thanks for having me out.